Shelby Oaks marks a historic time in cinema and YouTube and content creation in general. Chris Stuckmann made a feature film distributed by Neon after being a YouTube movie reviewer since 2009. This is incredible news. I have so much respect for this guy for doing this. Anthony, how do you feel?
It's awesome because YouTubers have made films in the past, the Philippou brothers, but they weren't movie reviewers. So this is a different thing. This is a guy who was a movie reviewer, one of the first, one of the biggest, and finally got to make a movie. And it's an amazing story. One of the biggest narrative film Kickstarter campaign in history. And he made a pretty good horror movie. I gotta say, there are some moments in this film that really worked. And just putting yourself out there, being able to get a big distributor like Neon, one of the most respected, I think, brands in cinema at the moment
100%.
for American distribution. They are exquisite tastemakers.
6 can winners in a row.
Yeah, it's crazy. Then Flanagan getting involved in this. It's an amazing story. And I got to say, I walked into this with expectations. I didn't know what to expect. And I walked out. It was pretty good, I got to say.
You know, Anthony and I are filmmakers as well. You know, this is what we're trying to do in addition to our lives. We were never reviewers first. We were always filmmaker-centric first. But the podcast just sort of happened. You know, and that's kind of our story that maybe people don't understand or know, is that we were pursuing filmmaking first. Podcast started in 2020, and it's led us to start producing our own independent films, writing and directing. And Anthony's directed 2 movies. My debut comes out on November 16th. One click. Find it on YouTube and Instagram, guys. One click film. We can't wait to show the world. And so it's really impressive to see someone, I think, come from the world of reviewing, especially in the internet age of film reviewing online with video. You know, Guillermo del Toro was a movie reviewer and movie critic. And he's
Jean-Luc Godard.
Yeah, so many filmmakers actually were critics.
Godard was a critic.
But it's different, I think, with Stuckmann because his face is out there. His videos are his reviews, and so he's got such a big following. And you know, he was more critical in the past, and he's been a lot more lenient and more positive with his reviews lately, which we like to always be as positive as possible with movie reviews. But it's a different era where this guy's face is his brand, and now he's going into the lion's den. He's done it. And he's putting himself out there as a filmmaker after reviewing movies for almost 2 decades. And kudos to him for doing that. It's really impressive. It's brave as hell to, you know, be someone who was critical of films, someone who gets a lot of love and hate at the same time, like all people on the internet. You get love comments constantly and hate comments constantly. Death threats have been thrown at everyone.
You've had death threats.
I have had death threats. And so I think it's really impressive to practice what you preach and go out there and put yourself out there and do something special.
Yeah, and when this film came out, I was attending a film festival for 5 days, so I didn't have a chance to see it. You were also busy, so we didn't get a chance to see it until recently.
Yeah, everyone knows how busy I am.
Yeah, Jesus, I'm surprised I got you today for this recording. But I was keeping tabs on reactions and just seeing what people were saying in our circle. And it seems to have gotten like a pretty polarizing response. People, you know, 10s and 1s, 5s and 1s.
Yeah.
You know, there's this back and forth. I gotta say, this movie, it's not perfect, but it does some things pretty well, and it's not a bad movie. I think that someone like you're saying, a personality like Stuckmann, I have seen a few Stuckmann reviews over the years, but I never watched his channel regularly.
Yeah, I maybe watched 1 or 2.
Yeah,
I never got into him.
I've always known who he was, but I've maybe watched 4 or 5 of his
out of envy. So many subscribers.
Yeah. I wish I had that many subscribers. So I wouldn't say I'm not like a regular to his channel. I never have been. But you're right. Being a personality with that big of a following, a lot of people are going to hate you and a lot of people are going to love you. You can see that in the polarizing nature of the reactions to the films. As more people watch the film over the weeks and even years, that will balance out. But it was definitely top heavy and bottom heavy with reactions.
It's pretty unfair. We talk about it all the time. Review bombing happens on both sides of the spectrum. 10s and 1s. You know, this movie's not a 10, it's not a 1, but it's getting probably 15-20% of its reviews are in that ballpark.
That's so extreme.
Which is sad. You know, nothing deserves a 1 or 10. I mean, a 1 when it, you know, I mean, there are 10s for sure, I will say. Yeah. But, I mean, it's not a freaking 1, and it takes away ratings. It's like a war in the comments section. The same thing's happening with reviewing films, but it's been the YouTube presence of forever.
Yeah, 100%. And I guess, I mean, we try to be as honest as we can with our critiques and expressions of love of films. With Shelby Oaks, let's start with the positives.
Sure.
I thought that Stuckmann did a really good job of building tone, and it had this eerie quality to it. It's a slow burn. Once he transitions from found footage into typical narrative, he does have a really good ability to create the tone and the tension and the feeling of unease. And that was captured with the cinematography, with the really good music, really great score. I think really helped the film a lot. And a character that is on this journey through this abandoned town, which I thought the idea of abandoned town was really a great concept for a horror film. I don't think I've played Silent Hill, but Silent Hill has a similar vibe, and there's other things. But I had never seen a film that I can remember that was set in an abandoned town. And actually, I liked it so much, I wish we had spent more time in the abandoned town. I thought it was a really interesting concept. We only got a couple of shots here and there. Maybe it's a budgetary thing, but I was really fascinated with the idea of like what causes town to erode and to fall into ruin and abandonment. So I really liked that aspect, and I liked it so much. I would have actually hoped that most of the film was set around that idea. It was explored a little bit, but like things like that, there were really good ideas, good concepts. There were some cool moments of creepiness, especially in the third act climax. There's a couple of creepy shots and blended with the music and some good visual effects and lighting. There were moments that creeped under your skin for sure, which is what you want to do with a horror film.
Real quick, check out this amazing Predator Badlands poster over my right shoulder. It's coming out very soon. Cannot wait to watch it. This was given to us by our great friends at movieposters.com. Use our code Raiders10 at checkout today to get 10% off your order, as well as our affiliate link in the episode description of all of our podcast episodes. That gets us a commission. You get 10% off in an amazing poster. Movieposters.com. Tell them we sent you. Yeah, I want to get to a quick plot breakdown. This is a spoiler-free one. So the film opens up in a mockumentary style, chronicling the 2008 disappearance of Riley Brennan and her YouTube paranormal investigation team, the Paranormal Paranoids, during a shoot at an abandoned prison in the ghost town of Shelby Oaks, Ohio, a once thriving amusement park community now shrouded in urban legends of hauntings and demonic activity. And so we get a lot of found footage sequences here. What's interesting is Stuckmann shot all the found footage stuff before the project was greenlit. Before he got funding, him and his friends and the actors and actresses in the film, in that found footage sequence, they actually just went and did it, which is really cool. So he did that before he got a green light and funding for the film.
I will say they did the reshoots with the team.
Some of them.
Yeah, okay. So some of the Neon-funded reshoots included the found footage stuff.
In the prison.
Yeah. Clearly, yeah, that was definitely a money scene. It doesn't specify, but it seems like from Neon, in a Stuckmann interview, he said they didn't have the time or money to do some of the more gnarly moments. And I pieced together from the photos of the reshoots they were shooting with the found footage team at the cabin. So I'm guessing that Neon gave them the money to do the big attack scene and show more of that.
Probably. Now, 8 years later, Riley's estranged sister, Mia, a childless woman grappling with personal loss, receives a cryptic mini DV tape from an unknown source, reigniting her buried trauma from her shared childhood fears of a shadowy, imaginary friend. And DV was an old digital video format, guys. We had these in college, I remember, in high school.
Tape.
Using them. Tape. Oh, my goodness. What follows then is Mia's obsessive quest to uncover the truth, pulling her into Shelby Oaks' decaying underbelly. She encounters eccentric locals, including a grizzled ex-prison warden and a reclusive, milky-eyed matriarch, while unearthing clues tied to satanic rituals, a possible incubus entity, and the town's cursed history. The narrative shifts from found footage snippets to a more conventional thriller, also a documentary filmmaking style of interviews of Mia, plus building a confrontation that forces Mia to confront whether the evil is supernatural or something far more intimate. The film draws from projects like The Blair Witch Project, Lake Mungo, as well as other classics like Rosemary's Baby and Hereditary.
Yeah, this movie was clearly made by a fan of horror, and that was absolutely on screen. And it worked, and then it also didn't work. I liked the found footage aspect transitioning into narrative. It was interesting. But there were a lot of ideas in this film and a lot of themes and it was kind of a mishmash and a boiling pot of a bunch of different things.
Like a Frankenstein's monster of genres.
And in some ways, I think it held it back from having a clear narrative drive and a clear narrative direction of what the movie was, because the movie was so many things, and it was spread thin, I think, in terms of ideas and concepts.
So for me, I don't mind the Frankenstein monsters mashup of genres. I think it can work when it's done really well. And I think it was almost there, pulling it off really effectively. I think for me, I think we'll start getting into spoiler territory now. So here's your spoiler warning for Shelby Oaks. I think the first 35 minutes was quite slow. It's got a great, opening sequence, and, we got this documentary style stuff mixed with the found footage. And I love the opening credit sequence.
Yeah. And also like true crime.
Yeah. I think the opening credit sequence was one of my favorite parts of the film. It was really phenomenal. I think that was, for me, one of the best points of the film for Chris Stuckmann's voice as a filmmaker was the opening credit sequence.
I'd say so too, yeah.
I think that really stood out for me as a unique type of filmmaking. But for a while in the film, for about 20 minutes, it felt like it was just exposition after exposition, which can work if done well, but I think it was just too much. We're getting a lot of stuff about the entirety of Riley's life. And I understand you want to get all the information in there to connect to the demonic presence that's been stalking her since childhood, as well as Mia having seen in the window as well. But it was a bit much. I think we could have done without it. I would have liked to see also in the first act more of the found footage stuff. I think it would have been cool to open with like an entirely found footage sequence,
like an episode of the paranoid,
of the whole
paranoids.
episode.
Yeah.
Because when you're just constantly dumping the info on the audience, it didn't. I think what he's going for, from being someone who's lived professionally in the YouTube space for so long, was a YouTube style opening, which it was. It worked well for like a true crime documentary, and then it shifted into the narrative feature. And I think that was effective to an extent, but I think it was just too much exposition after the opening. But then that lull between first and second act convergence was a bit long and a bit slow, and I think they also needed to get some runtime up. I think they needed some more stuff in there because it's only 90 minutes, 92 minutes long, and you kind of felt that runtime. But I think once they got to Mia uncovering clues in her investigation, that's when I was really locked in, because I thought it was really interesting. And then I think the style, the cinematography, and the aesthetic of the movie really expanded and improved so much. I mean, there's a lot of great cinematography in here, using crane shots and doing some really interesting things with the camera. I thought it was super effective. So in a way, it kind of felt like three different movies in one.
Yeah.
But I enjoyed once we got to Shelby Oaks with her investigating the prison, things like that, and then discovering Batilda Bagshot basically in the woods, this house, uncovering clues, uncovering the mystery, discovering her sister and the Tarian, the demon that is controlling everything and chose her as a child, I'm assuming. That, I think, was really where the movie soared.
Yeah.
And I think if we got to that sooner, and I think maybe if Mia was investigating over a longer period of time versus just a night, I think it would have worked better of building the narrative of where we got to by the end of the film.
Yeah, I would say that once you're in the cabin with the old woman, that's when he really settled into how to shoot it really well, creating the tone, the eeriness, the strange quality. That was I think the best sequence was her being invited in a strange encounter and conversations with this woman. That's really when I think that was the high point of the film. It just took a while to get there, and I think that it's something that learning as they're going along, figuring things out. I think that it's interesting to change formats mid-film from found footage to narrative.
Well, 3 times.
Yeah, 3 times. Yeah.
And the thing is, I think that it would have been... I think it would have behooved him to go. Obviously, we have found footage with an old DV camera.
Yeah.
But for me, I think the documentary style cameras of interviewing Mia for whatever, I think we needed some more information on kind of like the news network show, whatever that was.
What it was, yeah.
And then using, I think they used the same cameras for the rest of the film. Mm-hmm. I think if they changed formats there, that would have been more helpful for the audience to realize we're shifting tone.
That was, yeah, like Danny Boyle's Steve Jobs using 3 different film formats.
Exactly,
Yeah,
yeah.
I think I totally agree because the transition from true crime to narrative, that blend was not as coherent.
The style was too similar, especially the lighting as well.
100% agree, absolutely. The movie, and so I didn't mind the changing of formats, but for me, there's just too many like horror movie horror movie themes in it, from demonology, found footage, hellhounds. You're getting Rosemary's Baby, you're getting The Omen, you're getting The Blair Witch Project, you're getting Hereditary. There's a lot in this film, and it just sometimes it felt like it wasn't balanced, and sometimes it felt like it doesn't need all this stuff. It just felt overstuffed with horror movie ideas that we've seen before, whether it be characters or things we've seen in horror movies. And I gotta say, sometimes it took me out of it to have so many things from other horror movies into one film. I think that if he trimmed it down, and it would have added a little bit more of a cohesive element, and simplified it. But some of it did work. Some of it, I think that there was an over-reliance on CGI.
Yeah, I would have liked to see real dogs.
Yeah, so I was really disappointed by the use of CGI dogs, because dogs can do anything. You can train dogs to do anything, and they were doing the CGI dogs movements is pretty basic stuff, pretty simple stuff. Moving at certain times, having to sit down, having to step forward. I think that I was being taken out of the film because of the CGI. The CGI was clearly CGI, and even the dark, dim lighting still didn't help. And so I think that things like that, a reliance on CGI, took me out of the film. When if you're going low budget horror, the fans want practical, fans want real stuff.
I will say, Tarian, I don't know if he was CGI or a massive double or whatever. Mm-hmm. That looked great. I think Tarian, the demon, looked fantastic.
I think that was CGI.
I think it was probably CGI for the most part, unless maybe when he's standing behind the woman.
Arm in the prison was real for sure.
Yeah, but I think Tarian had a great aesthetic, great look, terrifying, enormous demon, crazy looking face. I would have liked to see the face a little sooner. I mean, the first time we really saw the face was we saw the DV cam footage, which was very blurry, maybe a little too blurry. I would say the DV quality was too low quality compared to the rest of the film. And then we saw the sketchings of Riley of the demon in the window. Mm-hmm. And then I love the aesthetic of Tarian. I thought Tarian was a great demon, and I think looked fantastic. And I think him and his team did a great job designing Tarian the demon. He was jacked. So I will say that part of the CGI, I think I really enjoyed a lot.
Yeah, I would say that CGI looked fine to me. Mm-hmm. The demon looked good to me, for sure. I didn't think that it was fake.
Yeah, and if we're going to we're basically on like pro, con. I do have a couple tiny cons here for me, where I really enjoed the film from, by the time we got to the second and third act, I was really rocking
once Mia got moving.
Yeah, once it got going, I enjoyed the film. I left the film saying to myself, I think this is the most overly criticized film of the year. And people are being pretty harsh on this movie, which, I mean, we all could have predicted, a movie critic making a movie. In this day and age, of course, people are going to be very harsh and put a magnifying glass to it. For a debut film, it's really good, guys. Mm-hmm. I will say, though, there's something in the first act that took me out of the first act of watching a film, and that's Mia watching the man kill himself in front of her, and then she gets his blood splatter all over her face. Mm-hmm. For me, her not washing that off, paramedics not checking on her, washing the blood off her face, and then keeping the blood on her face for the rest of the night with her husband, watching the footage, going to bed and everything. I understand she's in shock. I do get that. And when you're in shock, you don't want to move or process anything. It probably doesn't even process that there's blood on her yet. But at some point, it's going to kick in. I have a dead man's blood all over my face. Yeah. A paramedic's going to come check on you and clean the blood off your face, especially make sure it's not in your eye.
Yeah, it's like a safety thing to make sure you're not hurt.
Exactly.
Because even though you're not the one who got shot, something could still happen to you being in the presence.
And that's just human behavior. Yeah. Even if you're going to be in shock, the shock's going to wear off at some point. And if the paramedics aren't, or your husband's not going to clean you off, that took me out of it, where she didn't wipe any of it off at any point. And it's like several hours later, hours into the night, and she still has this guy's blood splatter on her. For me, that's all I could think about while I'm watching that sequence. I was barely like locked into what was going on.
Yeah.
And I'm like, what? She had blood all over her face still. So that for me took me out of the opening first act.
Yeah, it's important. Like human behavior, how the characters behave is so important to selling a movie. And when you think about when you think about movies that don't work or bad movies, it's often the way characters behave. You're like, no one would ever say that. No one would ever do that. So that's definitely a moment I agree in the film where I was just like, there's no way that blood would still be on that person's face in this situation hours later.
And I don't want to sound nitpicky, but like Anthony said, behavior is important for, character believability and to
selling the world.
Accept the suspension of disbelief. Like the suspension of disbelief is so important to film. And, I think that the first thing someone would naturally do is wipe their face. We have a sequence like that in One Click where someone gets blood splattered all over them. Within a couple minutes, they're wiping it off their face because that's what you would do, I think.
Absolutely. And even like you said, even if you don't do it, the medics, the first responders, the first thing they're going to do is wipe off the blood splatter to make sure you didn't get hurt by the injury.
Yeah.
Like make sure you're okay.
But let's not keep going on that.
Yeah. But I mean, the movie does do some other things really well. I think that the death of the film crew is also one of the strongest scenes of the film.
Yeah, it's brutal. Yeah, it's so good.
I think that was done really well because in the first act we only hear it from the other room, and then in the middle of the second act we get to see the footage, and it's pretty gnarly. I think that it was really impactful. I think the deaths were brutal,
ripping just the flesh off that person.
I think that
hardcore.
I think that worked really well. It was the best bit of found footage in the movie, I would say. So I really liked that. It was like, oh shit, that was pretty intense. That was pretty scary. They did a great job capturing that. And then that scene helps raise the stakes because then you see how in danger she is being in this situation. So I really like that part of the film because nothing brutal had happened until that. You want something brutal to happen in a film like this. So I would say that they knocked it out of the park with that sequence of the found footage deaths.
And I think the sound design was also fantastic. Horror is dependent on sound design. It's a genre that really needs it. And I think that the Newton brothers, they did a great job with the music as well. They're regulars with Mike Flanagan. They've done Dr. Sleep. They did Daredevil Born Again, Life of Chuck, Five Nights at Freddy's. So I think that was one of the best parts of the films, and the best thing that could have happened to the project, I think, is that you have Mike Flanagan on, one of the most respected voices in horror right now, to be an EP and help guide the project, and then you bring in his regular composers who are just so great at creating eerie tones, suspense, fear, and dread through their music, complementing a great sound design as well.
And I gotta say, I would say the scene stealer of the film is Robin Bartlett, who played Norma, the old woman.
Yeah,
Matilda
she's great.
Bagshot. She's
Matilda Bagshot.
She's the actress in Shutter Island with the glass that disappears.
That's where I recognized her.
I recognized her too, and I was like, "Who is this lady?" So she did a great job. She was so good that I wanted more of her.
Yeah,
she has really 2 scenes in the film, and I really I was like, man, this movie could have beefed up her role for sure.
And what to complement that, that's a great point. We have a great performer in a couple scenes, and she was fantastic and really pulled you in. Great performers can really pull you in. And I think that there was a bit of lost potential with a very important scene here. And I think Keith David, you have a legend, a fan favorite in horror. This guy's amazing. Everyone loves Keith David. He's so talented. And you got him for one day of filming, I'm assuming. And you got this scene with him. And overall, it was a very forgetful scene.
Yeah.
It really didn't have much. He didn't have much to work with. And I feel like if you got Keith David in your movie and you maybe have him for one day, make that the best, most suspenseful, interesting scene he could possibly do versus a very cliche character that anyone could have done. I'll tell you about, I was the warden of this guy was creepy.
Yeah.
Let me drink some booze in my coffee. So I think that there was a misstep with having such a great talent and icon in horror and kind of dropping the ball with him in his scene.
Yeah.
I think if you have a powerful scene with Keith David, or maybe in a different kind of role in the film, it really pulls the audience in a lot more.
So the film, I think it took a long time to set everything up, and then once it got going, it happened too fast. So the whole Riley paranormal paranoids.
Yep.
About 25 minutes, and then the tape, and then investigating in the library and stuff. I did not feel any real suspense until over an hour into the film, once we're at the prison. So for a horror movie, you want to start feeling suspense sooner, and you want to feel the tension sooner. Once he got there, I think he did a really good job creating the suspense. Entering the prison was creepy. He did a good job with those shots. The sound design. Entering the cabin was great. I really liked that. Like I said, the Norma Mia scene was really good. But we're an hour into the film, and then it starts feeling creepy and uneasy. For me, found footage always doesn't. It's hard to make found footage really scary. It has to be done really well for it to for me, impact me. So I never felt scared or too much tension from the found footage. I liked the scene of the people getting killed, but it didn't scare me. But I was like, oh, cool, finally some blood. But I gotta say, the second act of this film, looking through clues, a lot of zoom ins on photos and still frames of something in the background, a lot of that stuff. And for me, it's stuff that we've seen 1,000 times, so it lacked tension and suspense. So in my opinion, if the entire paranormal paranoid sequence was 5 minutes, and if she had encountered Norma within the 30-minute point at the end of the first act, and it could have been multiple interactions with Norma while investigating around Shelby Oaks, I think that this film could have been way more suspenseful, because I feel like once she left for Shelby Oaks, prison scenes 4 minutes, then she's in Norma's cabin for 5 minutes, and then she finds her sister, and then pretty much the movie's over. Ritual movie's over. So it was really only 4 main scenes in the plot after she decides to go to Shelby Oaks. You know what I mean? So
I get that. Yeah,
she goes to Shelby Oaks, then it's 4 scenes, and then the movie's over. So I feel like if she went to Shelby Oaks at the end of the first act, you could have had an hour of crazy shit going on in Shelby Oaks.
Yeah, no, that's a good point. I still think that opening with found footage sequence for 10, 15 minutes, and then Mia taking the story over and not doing the documentary stuff in terms of interviews.
Yes.
I think that would have been the stronger way to go forward with the film versus all of the, but I think it's, again, he's Stuckmann's a YouTube reviewer for his whole, almost 2 decades now. So I think he wanted probably to incorporate that aspect of reality and onlineness and social media and comments and reactions to videos and people speculating and comment threads, Reddit threads, TV news reports. So I think he probably wanted to incorporate that because that's his specialty in a lot of ways. But I think that if I'm looking at the film, what would I have done differently? 15-minute found footage sequence of just Riley and her team.
Yeah.
And then Mia takes over the story investigating clues.
I agree. Do you think we needed the true crime element?
I don't think we needed that.
Just found footage right to narrative.
Because we didn't get much from the interviews except for, we get it, Riley. Mia's really sad about Riley missing and, all these people missing. And I get you want to get the online reactions because that's the world we live in, and seeing what people are saying online is so important to a lot of people. But at the end of the day, a lot of that had no bearing on what we got to by the end. When we get to the third act, when we're in Shelby Oaks, I think if Mia's exploring Shelby Oaks, like you said, the abandoned town, the abandoned amusement park, that's really would have been really exciting stuff to see. But again, budget issues, I'm sure. Maybe they're constrained in terms of how many days they can spend there.
Maybe.
So that may be a factor into it as well.
We were wondering why did nobody ever investigate Shelby Oaks?
That's a good
point.
For
this 12 years. Why did she never? Because they were last seen at the gas station right outside the town line of Shelby Oaks, and I figured that that area would have been scoured if it's the last place they were seen was near that area.
Yeah, it could have been just a drive-by with someone, a cop in a car. I didn't see anything.
Drive-by?
So, I think there are ways to get around that. But, yeah, I think at the end of the day, the two strengths of the film are the found footage bit, if it's not too chopped up, and then Shelby Oaks being in Shelby Oaks and investigating.
Yeah. Once we were in Shelby Oaks, I had a really good time with the film once we were there.
Yeah.
The tension was there, the suspense, the eeriness was there. And I think that, discovering Riley was great. I didn't expect her to be alive, and then it turned into like a impregnated demon baby kind of situation.
Yeah, gut punch at the end of Trauma,
Yeah. I was left with the question of 12. She's been gone for 12 years, so were they just struggling to get Riley pregnant with the demon? I was wondering, like, would they have kept trying for so long, or would they have found a different surrogate for the baby? Because I was like, were they like struggling to get Riley pregnant from the demon for this long?
So maybe 12 years was too long of a period of time.
I think honestly, it would have probably worked better if it was maybe a year or two.
Yeah,
because
sure.
that huge time gap of so many years, that means Riley was down there for 12 years with the demon, and they were trying to make a demon baby, an incubus baby, for that long. And I'm putting myself in the shoes of this demon lady worshiper. You give it a few years, then you're like, okay, it's time to move on to a different lady and try to make a baby with someone else, because this clearly isn't working. So that huge time gap, and now, because now the baby was clearly recently born, so like she just got pregnant from the demon. So the 12-year time gap at the end of the film, I was like, maybe could have worked well with the kid as a kid, as like a 10-year-old.
Yeah, so I think that's probably the biggest critique of the film, though, is the script isn't as strong as the visuals and the filmmaking. I think the filmmaking is really good here, especially once we get away from the documentary stuff. But I think it's just the script lets it down in a lot of ways. But I mean, there's a lot of good ideas going on here, a lot of great styles. I think for a debut movie, people are treating it like it's the guy's fifth feature. It's pretty interesting. But for a first film, it's impressive. I think he did a great job, great team. So happy for him, and I respect it so much. This is the dream.
Yeah,
it's really incredible.
If he makes another film and he captures
He'll definitely make
captures what he did in the final 20 minutes of this movie, it could be a really good horror movie.
Yeah, I think so too.
Yeah, he has potential, because I'm telling you, like, once she was in that cabin, I was like, this is a really good scene.
Let's lock the fuck in.
Yeah, I liked how they darkened Norma's face, so she, even when there were lights around her, they clearly, like, with visual effects, darkened her face. You never, like, got a good look at her until, like, a couple of shots in the house. So I really liked how they captured that whole setting.
Yeah, they did a really good job.
The hall, eyes. My favorite moment was the underground tunnel, where how she just kept appearing closer and closer.
Yeah, that was the best part of the movie.
I think that was the best part of the film. I think that was the best horror concept he portrayed with filmmaking. And I think it looked really good too.
I agree.
Yeah, so there were definitely elements in this film that really worked for sure.
Crazy ending, fucking batshit, which I like. I like when a horror filmmaker's like, let's just do something fucking insane.
Yeah.
Let's throw Riley out a window and get her eaten by hellhounds.
Riley had a tough life.
And then Mia's now the mother of Demon Baby.
Yes, the one who was meant to raise the baby all along.
I think that was cool.
Is what I
that's the plan.
Everything.
So that's the thing where it might have been too... That for me was a little too much like Hereditary, where she's outside that woman's door, knocking on the door, but it's locked, and inside we see the sacrificial garments. And
that woman is the
ritualistic...
Norma's very similar to that woman.
Yeah. So all the ritualistic things that are there, and we see the photo of him, of Alex Wolff. I think that was too much, because that was like... Up until that point... I think there could have been more clues as to what's going on. Mm-hmm. Like Hereditary has great clues of what's happening. And this was just so like, now like the blood smearing on the photos reveals to us that Mia's been part of the plan too.
Yeah. The thing is,
and I guess that I get the etchings in the wall and the tree. Yeah.
The thing is, every horror movie borrows from other horror movies. Hereditary borrows from Rosemary's Baby.
100%.
So much. Weapons, it's borrowed so much from Prisoners and Magnolia. But what sets those films apart is Ari and Kreger. They used their inspiration, but they gave us something new in the film. Eventually, we got something we'd never seen before in those films. That's why, even though Weapons has clearly got the DNA of Prisoners and Magnolia in it, he threw in some stuff that really threw us for a loop. So there's nothing wrong with borrowing from other movies. Everyone does it. Mm-hmm. But I think that if you're going to do it, what the way to pull it off is to do something new with the ideas and do something new with the setups and the archetypes and the settings. So that's what sets like Weapons apart from this film. Kreger went nuts. He shocked us. In this film,
the Naruto run itself is just like something crazy.
Yeah, in this film, again, borrowed and inspired from other horror movies. It's fine, but again, just the birth of another ritual, another birth of a demon baby. That's where it was like we didn't get anything new. You know what I mean?
It was a cute baby.
It was a cute baby. It's an adorable baby.
Cute baby.
But that's the thing. That's the difference. Is like take what you want, go for it, but you still try to make it your own and do something we haven't seen before to really set yourself apart.
That's a good point.
Yeah.
And again, mad respect to Chris Stuckmann. Really impressive first film. So happy for him.
It's not a bad movie.
Yeah.
I think people are shitting on it and being a little too harsh.
That's what I mean. Magnifying glass. They're treating it like it's his third, fourth film.
Yeah.
You know?
It's not a bad movie.
There are a lot of bad debuts out there for features, and this is not one.
And there are bad horror movies. There are a lot of bad horror movies. This is not one of them.
But that's our review on Shelby Oaks. Thanks for tuning in, guys. Be sure to always do the things that help our show immensely by going to patreon.com/Raiders of the Lost Podcast. Signing up today, get access to bonus episodes, bonus reviews, and our Discord, as well as access to ad-free episodes. Join our YouTube memberships program as well. You get scheduled episodes early, which is pretty cool, as well as do all the things that help us on social medias, Instagram, TikTok, Twitter. Follow us everywhere. Leave those comments. Leave those likes. Share us in your stories. Tune into One Click on November 16th. This is the stuff that helps our show so much. Spotify, Apple, leave those reviews. Follow everywhere, and take care.
See you next time.
This episode was executive produced by our chosen one patrons, Nicholas Martin and Jacob Kossler. Raiders of the Lost Podcast is a mirror image production.